Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in Jew. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. In this year's Doctor Who finale, we saw many people offended and upset, and opinion upon opinion and reaction in the revelation that the Doctor was the timeless child. The revelation that there are multiple pre-Hartnell Doctors. Now, hands up. Firstly, I don't know if this is the truth, or if there's more to come from this storyline. I've also gone on record in saying that I'm not particularly angry and offended that there are pre-Hartnell Doctors. But like everything in life, we should all try and put ourselves from other people's point of view. Now, please smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, and follow me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad. On this video, I want to talk about William Hartnell as the first Doctor. I want to try and think about how people feel about this. Now, what you may not understand is that it's not just a bunch of old duffers in their 40s, 50s and 60s who are upset by this. What happened with the Doctor Who revival was many young people watched the first episode Rose and loved it, and loved Doctor Who, and loved the idea, and became obsessed with it, and went back and rewatched classic Who as much as was available to them to watch. And people became obsessed and in awe of Bill's performance and Bill's passion for the role. For people all around the world, I'm talking people who are 20, 25, 30, people who are still going at school, obsessed with this guy as the first Doctor. As far as they're concerned, this guy is number one, right? He's the first Doctor, right? It's the same people who watched Smallville, right? And then went back and watched George Reeves as Superman. And they see him as the first guy to play him in live action. So someone goes back and says, right, we've just created this bullshit version. He's not the first anymore. People, understandably, are going to be really pissed off. So I have got Bill Hartnell's IMDb here. I'm going to read some quotes from him because these are really interesting. And it just shows the guy's passion for it. And maybe if we can read these quotes, and then you can understand why people are so heartbroken by the timeless child reveal. I don't like anything blue or salacious or suggestive because I'm not that type of actor. On children, they find me a cross between The Wizard of Oz and Father Christmas. I'm a legitimate character actor of the theatre and film. On the Daleks, they were difficult to play because you're not looking into human eyes. You know what I mean? You're looking at a metal object moving about with a voiceover. Space travel, question mark? Quite honestly, it scares me to death. I haven't the slightest wish to get in a rocket and zoom through the stratosphere. Somebody else can be the first man on the moon. It doesn't interest me at all. I do, however, believe that there is life on other planets and that they know we're here but haven't got the technology to get through. Brilliant, brilliant. It may seem like hindsight now, but I just knew that Doctor Who in 1963 was going to be an enormous success. Don't ask me how. Not everybody thought as I did. I was universally scoffed at for my initial faith in the series, but I believed in it. It was magical. He believed in it. It was magical. The first Doctor, everyone. We did Doctor Who in 1963 for 48 weeks, a year, but I loved it. I couldn't go out into the street without a bunch of children following me, like the Pied Piper. People used to take it terribly seriously. I'd get letters from boys swatting for exams, asking me complicated questions about time ratios and the TARDIS. I couldn't help them. A lot of the script writers used to make the Doctor use expressions like centrifugal force, but I refused. If it gets too technical, the children don't understand and they lose interest. I saw the Doctor as a kind of lama, one of those long-lived old boys out in Tibet who might be anything up to 800 years old, but only looks 75. Wow, the entire concept is in this man's think tank. An intelligent guy, right? I think we can agree. I was so pleased to be offered Doctor Who in 1963. To me, kids are the greatest audience and the greatest critics in the world. So already we can see a genuine, nice man who seems on the outside very hard, but there's a soft centre. The Doctor, right? That sums up the Doctor, right? Before the part came along, I'd been playing a bunch of crooks, sergeants, prison wardens and detectives. Then after appearing in this Sporting Life 1963, I got a phone call from my agent. He said, I wouldn't normally have suggested your work in children's television, Bill, but there's a sort of character part come up that I think you'd just love to play. My agent said the part was that of an eccentric old grandfather come professor type who travels in space and time. Well, I wasn't that keen, but I agreed to meet the producer. Then the moment this brilliant young producer, wow, I'm going to get emotional now, Miss Verity Lambert started telling me about Doctor Who. And I was hooked. I remember telling her this is going to run for 5 years. And look what's happened. Very emotional, very. On Doctor Who, we did it 48 weeks, a year in those days, and it was very hard work. But I loved every minute. Doctor Who is certainly a test for any actor. Animals and children are renowned scene stealers, and we had both. Plus an assortment of monsters that became popular in their own right. Look at the Daleks. They started in the second series and were an immediate success. At one time in late 1964, I thought we might extend the series, and I suggested giving the Doctor a son and calling the programme The Son of the Doctor of Doctor Who. The idea was for me to have a wicked son. We would both look alike, each have a TARDIS and travel in outer space. In actual fact, it would have meant that I had to play a dual role when I met my son. But the idea was not taken up by the BBC, so I dropped it. I still think it would have worked and been exciting to children. Now that's interesting because it kind of sounds like the concept of the Master, which they eventually did use. Very interesting that this actor actually understood what and who Doctor Who is. Wow. Intelligent guy, right? We're getting to know Bill here. And I'm getting to know why people love him so much and why people are so offended of potentially him not being the first Doctor. But he always will be the first Doctor to us. Let's make that abundantly clear, because when this video goes up, I will tag them all. All the big bods who are running Doctor Who now, and everyone, because I think it's important. You know, I couldn't go out into the high street without a bunch of kids following me. I felt like the Pied Piper. We've read that, haven't we? People really used to take it literally. I'd get letters from boys. Yeah, we've got memories. There are so many. There was the occasion when I arrived at the air display in the TARDIS, and the kids were convinced I had flown in there. On another occasion, I went by limousine to an open local fete when we got there. The children just converged on the car, cheering and shouting. Their faces all lit up. I knew then just how much the Doctor really meant to them. Wow. Wow. Amazing. You know, when you think about William Hartnell, and, you know, I'm guilty of doing this because I was introduced to Doctor Who through Peter Davison's Doctor, and I loved it. And I've spoken about that before. And then I kind of ducked out after Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker. They weren't for me. Great guys, great actors, but they weren't for me as the Doctor. And then I came back for Doctor Who, the movie and the revival, and I loved it. And this guy, William Hartnell, always seemed like just some old guy. If I'm honest, right? I'm not going to lie. But now, recently, since I started watching season 12, I really started, I subscribed to BritBox. I started watching his episode. I actually own An Unearthly Child and the first Dalek serial on my Prime Video. And I started getting into him and researching him. And then I realised this guy is the freaking Doctor. He's every person who's ever played the Doctor. These people, these actors who have come in, and I don't think I can count Jodie in on this, but everyone else has based their Doctor, points of their Doctor, on this guy. He's the original. He's the first. You can't change that. Even if you want to, you cannot change it. Bill Hartnell was special. Bill Hartnell lived and breathed Doctor Who. And when he was told he couldn't play the Doctor anymore, he was heartbroken. It was everything to him. Everything. He lived And he breathed it, as I said. And now I start to understand something, why people are so upset. And I think when people are angry and aggressive, it comes across the wrong way. But ultimately, I think they see it as I do. That this guy was special. If this guy is like Christopher Eccleston, if Christopher Eccleston doesn't play the first Doctor, it may not have worked. The revival may have not have worked. Doctor Who may not have been the international worldwide success and hit it became. And it's the same with Bill Hartnell. He started the thing off. He was special. He was this young guy in an old man's body. He really was a talented man. He started off as this gruff, kind of, really gruff and not a very nice character, if you like. He literally abducts Barbara and Ian. But he was great. And he deserves his title as the first Doctor. And to think that someone who claims to be a Doctor Who fan has taken that away from him is heartbreaking. Now, I know what people who make the show think, people who write about Doctor Who, they think we have ownership and we should never get what we want. But is it really about that? Bill Hartnell was the first guy to ever play the Doctor. Did we really need a storyline that has pre-Hartnell Doctors, right? I understand it's kind of interesting, but with a show that you can literally do anything with, haven't you really got the imagination to leave that alone? I know it's controversial and it gets people talking, and I suppose any conversation about the show is good. No publicity is bad publicity, right? But you have people walking away from the show. People have already walked away from the show thanks to season 11. That's not my critique on season 11. I'm just telling you the facts. And to do this, as much as I personally like the Timeless Child reveal, I understand. And even though I like it, I don't particularly need it, right? I don't need it. It doesn't need to be. This ruins things for people. And as I say, this is not just a bunch of old dudes, right? This is girls and boys who have been watching since the revival and have gone back and enjoyed this. These are people who are now 16, 17, 20, 21, 25. These are young men and young women. They're not sexists. They're not misogynists, right? They're not racists. They're just ordinary people who always believed he was the first, believed he was the pinnacle of the characterization of the character. And that's been taken away. And that's heartbreaking for people, because people take TV and storytelling and films to their hearts, especially when there's not much else in the world. Look at the world we live in today. This virus. Everyone has to stay at home, and all of a sudden, the thing they love on their TV set becomes all more important. This Saturday, at 7 o'clock, a young woman, I think her name is Emily Cook, has set up this viewing party for the Day of the Doctor. And it means so much for everyone. And when things are not in the present day the way you want them, you look back. So for a lot of people, present day Doctor Who isn't very good anymore. So we're looking back to the Day of the Doctor. In a way, a pinnacle of New Who. I feel that us as fans, as kind of these people, and the people who make this show, we all need to take a step back. Of course, the Timeless Child arc is part of the culture war. And we can see that. We can see Tech Tae-yoon experimenting on the Doctor and becoming these different versions of the Doctor. You know, a person of colour, white, you know, Chinese, right? And then you start to think, was it done for that specific reason? Because Doctor Who in the past was always accused of being racist and sexist. And was this readdressing the balance? Was that more important than destroying the myth? The fact that Bill Hartnell is the first Doctor. It's very emotional for people. And I think, even though, as I say, I think it's a storyline with lots of potential, and as I've already said, it's a storyline, even though I like it, that I didn't need. This man deserves respect because, as I said before, he lived and breathed Doctor Who. And I think if Chris Chibnall could just put himself back as the fan who went on TV to criticise Doctor Who himself, he'd understand why so many fans are so upset and heartbroken about this revelation. Please like, share and subscribe, comment down below, and I'll be back with more Doctor Who videos. See you again soon.